This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
In progress.
Okay, good evening everyone. Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Habayim. This week, the Wednesday night shir meets up with Tuesday night. So welcome to the shir. The Shiurim, continuing in the Sefer Shemai series, are sponsored by Dr. Zakheim and Mishpachta Le'nishmas Rav Shlomo Eliezber Rav Yaakov Zakheim, Le'nishmas Rivka Bas Tzvi Halevi, and Rav David ben Rav Yaakov Tzvi HaKohen. This week's shir is sponsored by Machon Magid Harakia Yarche Kala Group. We just had a beautiful 3-day convention in sunny Florida. We spent 3 days discussing the halachos of the ethics of warfare and civilian casualties and reprisal, and what is the basis of halachic ethics in war. It was an amazing turnout, and we thank the Yarche Kala Group for dedicating tonight's shir. Tonight's shir is sponsored by my dear friend Rav Moshe Morgenstern V'rayasai Leiloi Nishmas, their sister-in-law and sister Tzipora Bas David Meir Began Eden Tehem Nuchasa. She should be Umlitza Yeshara for whole family, for Simchas Hanachas Abias Gal Tzedek. Tonight's shir is dedicated by my dear friends the Ruzhin and Ryabinsky family. Leiloi Nishmas Mordechai Ben Baruch Began Eden Tehem Nuchasai should be Amelis Yosher for his whole family, and have a Lichtiga Gan Eden. Okay, it's my favorite time of the year, Purim time. Now usually you only have 30 days to prepare for Purim, but this year there are 2 Adars. Last week we spoke about the Mazel of the 2 Adars, Mazel Adar Dogim, and we uncovered 3 different approaches to the 2 Adars. We had the approach of the Lavush, that actually Adar Rishon is not even a month, and the Mazel of Adar Rishon is Dali, and Adar Sheni is the Ikar Adar. We saw the approach of the Marsha, that both Adars are Mazel Adar Dogim, and then we saw the approach of the Chizkuni and Rabbeinu Ephraim and Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, that the Mazel Adar Dogim is Adar Rishon, and Adar Sheni has no Mazel at all. In fact, I got an email from somebody, his whole life he never knew why he never had luck in the stock market. And then he realized because his birthday was in Adar Beis, and he sees Taka, he has no Mazel. So it could be very enlightening. We also learned that what are the Dogim? That Mazel Adar is Dogim. Mazel Adar Dogim are the Levyasan, the male and the female, says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, says Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Chaver. Tonight, with the help of the Rebbeinu Shalom, we're going to discuss 3 lines in the Yerushalmi. Yerushalmi and Megillah, this year there are 2 Adars, and we know, of course, there's a machlokes. When do you celebrate Purim? When do you read the Megillah? It's machlokes in Masechta Megillah on Daf Vav Amud Beis. Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yossi holds, just like every year you read the Megillah in the Adar next to Shvat, so too you read the Megillah in Adar Rishon. Wouldn't that be great? That's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yossi. You read the Megillah in Adar Rishon. However, Reb Shimon Gamliel holds no. Reb Shimon Gamliel holds that we lay in the Megillah in Adar Sheni. That we read the Megillah in Adar Sheni. Why do we read the Megillah in Adar Sheni? We read the Megillah in Adar Sheni because Mismach Gula Legula Adaf. It's better to juxtapose the Megillah, one Megillah, to another Megillah. It's better to juxtapose, Mismach Gula Legula. It's better to juxtapose one redemption to another redemption. If somebody could figure out how to plug that in, because the battery is low. It's better to juxtapose one redemption to another. Okay, so the opinion of Shimon Gamliel is we read the Megillah in Adar Beis. In Adar Beis. The question is, when the miracle of Purim happened, when the miracle happened, when the miracle occurred, when the miracle of Purim occurred, the question is, thank you. Okay, is it going to reach? Okay. Maybe we'll just move this. Okay. Does it reach? Okay. Yeah, try that. One second, I can't. When the miracle of Purim occurred, yeah, it should be okay for now. When the miracle of Purim occurred, did it happen in an Ibriyar? Did it happen in a year that there was one Adar? Did it happen in a year there were two Adars? Because that would be very telling. Wouldn't that be interesting to know? When did Purim occur? Did Purim occur in a regular year, in a year that there's only one Adar? Did Purim occur in a year that there were two Adars? Well, if it occurred in a year that there were two Adars, which Adar did it occur in? So tonight we're going to study 3 lines of a Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi is found in Megillah, Perek Aleph, Halacha Hey, and the Yerushalmi says as follows: Reb Levi b'shem Reb Chama bar Chanina. Reb Levi in the name of Reb Chama bar Chanina. Oisa shana haisa mu'uberes. That year, the year of the Purim story, it was an Ibriyar. My taima. Now usually my taima means what's the reason. Here my taima means how do you know it was an Ibriyar? Because the pasuk says, Miyayim liyayim umechaydesh l'chaydesh ne'masar u'chaydesh adar, from day to day and from month to month, the 12th month, the month of Adar. So somehow, the fact that the Megillah says from day to day and from month to month, in the 12th month, the month of Adar, that implies the year the Purim story happened, there were 2 Adars. We're going to have to see, how do you see in these words that there were 2 Adars in the year of Purim? So we come to the Karban Ha'eda. The Karban Ha'eda is the most extensive commentary on the Yerushalmi. It was written in the 18th century, so it was not a long time ago, by Reb David Frankel. But it covers, it was written in the 18th century, and there, you should know historically there were many commentaries on the Yerushalmi, and we don't have all of them. You know, Rav Moshe Feinstein wrote a parish on the whole Yerushalmi. We don't have it. Rav Menachem Zemba wrote a commentary on the whole Yerushalmi. The Nazis destroyed it. Rav Chaim Kanievsky gave a shir on Yerushalmi, and it was reworked into a parish. But we have 2 classic perushim. You have the Karban Ha'eda, you have the Pnei Moshe. The Karban Ha'eda says, how do we see from this pasuk that the year of the Purim story there were 2 Adars? Says the Karban Ha'eda, Hu Chodesh Adar Lamali. The pasuk says L'Chodesh Shnei Masar, in the 12th month. Hu Chodesh Adar. Why does it have to say Adar? Everybody knows Adar is the 12th month. You know what it's saying? Hachi Kamar. L'Chodesh Yud Beis Shebechol Shana. The 12th month of a typical year. But this year, it's the 13th month. That's the drasha. In other words, it says the 12th month, the month of Adar. Everybody knows Adar is the 12th month. Why does it have to say the 12th month, the month of Adar? Don't we know Adar is the 12th month? No, what it means to say is what's typically the 12th month, but this time around it's the 13th month. So that's the indication that the Purim story happened in an Ibriyar. By the way, in the Sefer Shar Yisaschar of the Monkacher, the Minchas Elazar, the Shar Yisaschar brings another possible way the Yerushalmi knows that it happened in an Ibriyar, that it happened in a year that there were 13 months. Because the pasuk says, Mechodesh l'chodesh ne'masar. That implies the 12th month was Mechodesh l'chodesh. It was a double month. Mechodesh l'chodesh. So that implies it was an Ibriyar. So the question is, how do we know that it happened in the 2nd month? Maybe it happened in the 1st month. The answer is, it says, Mechodesh l'chodesh ne'masar. The month that's next to the 12th month. Which month is next to the 12th month? The 2nd Adar. Okay? So the opinion of the Karban Ha'eda says, Aval Atahu Chodesh Yud Gimel, the opinion of the Pnei Moshe, the opinion of the Shar Yisaschar, was the year of the Purim story, was an Ibriyar, but not just an Ibriyar, it happened in the 2nd Adar. Okay? Now it's interesting, if you look in the Bnei Yisaschar, when he talks about what we spoke about last week, that Kishuf does not have any shlita on someone who's born in Adar Sheni, he says the reason is because Kishuf works based on the mazalos, and there is no mazal in Adar Beis. And then the Bnei Yisrael says, you should know, I heard that the Gezerah of Haman was for the second Adar. So, the Munkacher was a descendant of the Bnei Yissaschar. So the Munkacher asks on the Bnei Yissaschar, Zayda, what do you mean you heard the Purim story was in a year that there was a double Adar? What do you mean you heard? It's a Beferish Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi says it was in a year that there were two Adars. After all, look, again, the Yerushalmi says, Miyoim liyoim umeichodesh l'chodesh neimasar. The Yerushalmi says, Oisa hashana hoisa meuberas. And in your Zechus, I just thought of an answer of how to explain the Bnei Yissaschar. What does he mean? He heard it was in the second Adar. The Yerushalmi says Beferish. Okay, so now we're going to offer this evening 4 approaches of how to explain these lines in the Yerushalmi, that the year of the Purim story, there were 2 Adars. The simple meaning is, it happened in the second Adar. The simple meaning is, it happened in the second Adar. Here's the $1 million question. Ready? Michael, you look, I don't see you, but you look familiar. I feel like I just saw you somewhere. The Gemara Megillah brings 2 opinions. The Gemara brings the Machlokes. When do you read the Megillah? Do you read the Megillah in Adar Aleph? Or do you read the Megillah in Adar Beis? Rabbi Glatstein, Rabbi Yossi holds you read the Megillah in Adar Aleph. Why? Because the pasuk says B'chol Shana Ushana. Just like every year you read the Megillah in the month next to Shvat, so too when there are 2 Adars, you read it in a month that's next to Shvat. What month is next to Shvat? Adar Aleph. And then the Gemara says Shem Gamliel disagrees. He says it says B'chol Shana V'Shana. Just like every year it's Adar next to Nisan, so too this year it's Adar next to Nisan. Which Adar is next to Nisan? Adar Beis.
Are they both Tanoim?
What?
Are they both Tanoim?
Yes, they're both Tanoim.
Which is the later one?
I'm not sure.
Don't you usually listen to the later one?
I think they're basically in the same generation. Now the Gemara goes deeper. So then, why does one hold Shvat? Why does one hold Adar Aleph? Why does one hold Adar Beis? So the Gemara says the logic of Rabbi Glatstein, Rabbi Yossi is Ein mavir ala mitzvahs. When you have the opportunity to mitzvah, do it right away. The logic of Rav Shem Gamliel is mismach geula legula adif. It's better to juxtapose one redemption to another. Comes Shailas Sechuvas Mahari Bruna. Shailas Sechuvas Mahari Bruna. Mahari Bruna is one of the Chachmei Ashkenaz. The Ramah will quote Mahari Bruna, and he asks 2 bamba of a kash. You know what a bamba is? In yeshiva, when you have a bomb, the question is a bomb. What you drop on,
Bombshell.
when you need a bomb of a kasha. He asked 2 kashas. Question number 1, really, the year of the Purim story, there were 2 Adars? But question is, how could there have been 2 Adars? But Haman only made 12 lots. Chazal say, the Medrash says, Haman cast 12 lots. But if there were 2 Adars, he should have cast 13 lots. In your Zechus, I think maybe we'll be able to answer that also.
You don't know?
Presumably, everyone gets the Chavetz Chaim calendar in the mail. It's widely dispersed. Ezra's Torah Luach. I'm saying, these fundraisers, they could find you wherever you are. There's actually a story about 2 guys that got shipwrecked, and one of the guys was very nervous. He was building houses, he was building shuls, restaurants, mikvahs, and the other guy was just sitting there twiddling his thumbs. And the other guy is trying to find food, and the other guy is calm. So the anxious guy says to the calm guy, I don't understand. We're going to be here forever. Nobody's ever going to find us. Why aren't you got to prepare. He says, I'm not worried. Why are you not worried? He says, because my son's yeshiva's dinner is in 3 days. They're going to find us right away. So, you don't have to worry. Everyone gets the luach. Haman got the luach. He got 20 luach. Well, come on, when you were in elementary school, at the end of the day, the Rebbe would always raffle off for a prize calendars. Right? He would come in with piles of calendars. So question number 1 is Haman only made 12 lots. Question number 2 is a gavaldiga question miman nafshach. Question number 2 is we have Machlokes, Rabbi Glatstein, Rabbi Yossi, and Rav Shem Gamliel. Do you lay in the Megillah in Adar Aleph or in Adar Beis? So just tell me, if the story of Purim happened in a year that there were 2 Adars, and the miracle happened in the second Adar, why would anybody say you read the Megillah in Adar Aleph? It didn't happen in Adar Aleph. It happened in Adar Beis. Bishlama, if it happened in a regular year. So now we have a question, what do you do in an Ibra year? Do you do it the first time around or the second time around? But if the story happened in a year, there were 2 Adars, and the miracle happened in Adar Beis, why would anyone say commemorate in Adar Aleph? Comes the Shiurim Meshiv. Rabbi Yosef Shol Halevi Natanzan. After the war, my grandmother was a young girl, and she didn't have parents. She met, after the war, a lady, Mrs. Natanzan, who was a mother figure to her in a way, and this lady was a direct descendant of the Shiurim Meshiv, Rabbi Yosef Shol Halevi Natanzan. And I heard from Rabbi Asher Weiss, the largest body of Torah Shabbal Peh ever written was Shalos Tshuvos, the Shiurim Meshiv, Rabbi Yosef Shol Halevi Natanzan, who writes in one of his Tshuvos, some people every year they make a Siyam Hashas. He writes every year he make a Siyam on Nevi'im and Ksuvim. Okay, so he says an unbelievable answer. Again, regarding the second question, if in the year the Purim story happened there were 2 Adars, so then why would Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yossi say that when there are 2 Adars, you lay in the Megillah in Adar Aleph, when the story happened, it happened in Adar Beis? So he says something out of this world. The Gemara discusses the pasuk Hashenis, the second year. What do we do the pasuk the second year, or the second? So Gemara says, Rav Shin Gamliel uses that pasuk to indicate that when there are 2 Adars, you read the Megillah in the second Adar. So Gemara asks, and what does Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yossi do with the pasuk Hashenis? Says the Gemara, he uses it to teach us that in year 1 they only made Purim in Shushan, and in year 2 they said, you know what, everyone should celebrate Purim. But Hashenis indicates in year 1 only the residents of Shushan celebrated Purim. It was only in year 2 that the whole world celebrated Purim. Says the Shiurim Meshiv, an unbelievable thing. Maybe really the Yerushalmi is right. If the story of Purim happened in the year that there were 2 Adars, why would Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yossi say we commemorate the first Adar? Very simply, because even though the Purim story happened in the year that there are 2 Adars, but in year 1 they only observed Purim in Shushan. They didn't observe Purim anywhere else. Comes year 2. Year 2 is a regular year. There's only 1 Adar. So they observe Purim in Shushan and everywhere. Comes year 3, and it's an Ibra year again. And now they want to know, how should we celebrate Purim? So Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yossi says, you should celebrate in the first Adar. Yeah, but it happened in a year there were 2 Adars, and it happened in the second Adar. Yeah, but in the year that it happened, nobody celebrated Purim B'chlal except for Shushan. So we don't follow what they did in year 1. We would follow perhaps what they did in year 2. So even though the story happened in the year that there were 2 Adars, but it wasn't even observed in year 1. It was not observed until year 2. So year 2, there's only 1 Adar. So now in year 3, when there's a second Adar, now we want to know, should you do the first Adar, because Ein Mavir Nala Mitzvos, or should you wait till the second Adar? This would answer another unbelievable question. You ready for the unbelievable question? Who's ready? The later the shir starts, the better it is. It's a well-known principle. Yeah? You know that principle? You ever hear that principle? The later the shir starts. This is a question of the Sefer Soyafois Re'im on the Sefer Yereim. The Yereim was written by Elazar Mimitz, and he asked an unbelievable question. Raise your hand if you celebrate Purim Katan. Like all out. You know, the whole thing. Suda, costume, balloons, Laffy Taffies, Hamantashen. It's a machlokes whether you're supposed to celebrate Purim Katan. What did we say last week? Talmidei Baal Shem, they don't do anything Purim Katan. Even though some say they do, but they don't. It's machlokes Rishonim whether Purim Katan is significant or not. according to the Yerushalmi, that the Purim story happened in the year that there were 2 Adars, and it happened in the second Adar, then Purim Katan should have no meaning whatsoever. Meaning, he asks on the Rishonim that say you should celebrate Purim Katan, but according to Yerushalmi, what logic is there to celebrate Purim Katan? The story happened in the year there were 2 Adars, and it happened in the second Adar. Why celebrate the first Adar? So we can answer. Yeah, but those Rishonim don't agree with that Tosfos.
They celebrated Purim Katan.
No, some Rishonim, but other Rishonim say Purim Katan is nothing. Why? And that's the Rambam holds Purim Katan is nothing. The Rosh holds it's nothing. And also, Reb Sender, none of the Talmidei Baal Shem do anything on Purim Katan. And l'chayra makes sense. Why? Because it happened in a year that there were 2 Adars, and the story happened in the second Adar. But according to the Shalom Eshiv, it's very beautiful. Because it's true the Purim story happened in the year there were 2 Adars. But in year 1, the Purim story, nobody celebrated Purim except for Shushan. So the first real Purim was in a regular year where there's only 1 Adar. Now in year 3, we want to know when to celebrate Purim. So listen carefully. Rabbi Lezer Rabbi Yossi says, Ein Mavir Nal Mitzvos. Rishim Gamliel says, no. Samach Gula Gula Adif. Yeah, but we're not going to completely ignore Adar Rishon. Because Lamaisa, in the first real Purim, which is year 2, there's only 1 Adar. So this is the Shalom Eshiv's take on the Yerushalmi. Again, the Yerushalmi says the story happened in the year that there were 2 Adars, but you could make the argument that even though the story happened in the year 2 Adars and it happened in the second Adar, but it wasn't fully observed until year 2 anyway, so that could be a reason to give credibility to Adar Aleph. That's the first.
Separating the actual mace from the practice celebrating.
Because the question is, what are we commemorating?
The celebration or the mace?
Okay, or the Kfiyas HaYamtiv. How is the Yamtiv established? So, if you're going to say it was established in Adar Beis, then there's nothing around. How could you ever celebrate Adar Aleph? But if it was never established in Adar, it wasn't established in Adar Beis. It was established in Adar. And now we want to know, okay, in year 3, how do we follow the original establishment? So you say, well, it's logical to follow the original establishment in a way that commemorates how the miracle happened. Or it could be that that's not how kaviyuses are carried out. The way they're carried out is following the way it was established initially. That's approach number 1. Approach number 2, I'm going to ask you now the best question you ever heard on Purim, hands down. And you hear this question, you're going to be kicking yourself. Why did I never throw this question? Don't kick yourself too hard. Never get down on yourself. But you could a little bit, you should think, why? Okay. Anybody know the whole story of Purim? How much time did it occupy? From the ascent of Haman. In other words, from when Haman gave the idea to hang Mordechai until the day that Haman was hanging. How long was the whole story? The whole story was 72 hours. Haman comes to Achashverosh Yud Gimel Nisan. Let's hang Mordechai. And by the first day of Pesach, he's hanging. Can you imagine? The whole story happened in 72 hours. Haman came with the plot on Yud Gimel Nisan. Mordechai heard about it. He let Esther know. They fasted 3 days. Esther went into the palace. The next thing we know, Haman fell on the bed and he's a dead man. He's dead like a Haman. He's smashed like a Hamantash. The whole Purim story, 72 hours. Chazal say God never puts a tzaddik in a bind for more than 72 hours. So the big question on the Megillah is, if you look at number 14, the original document to eradicate the Jewish people went out on when? Yud Gimel Nisan. When did Mordechai write the second document to rescind the decree? Look in number 14. Vayikaru Soferei HaMelech Bo'es Hahi B'chodesh HaShalishi Hu Chodesh Sivan B'shloisha v'yesrihim B'hayi Vayikaseb Chashat Tzivah Mordechai El Hayudim. By the way, this pasuk, you know what the distinction of this pasuk is? It's the longest pasuk in the whole Tanakh. This is the pasuk of the greatest Yeshua that ever happened to the Jewish people. The rescinding of the original decree. What's the date? 23rd day of Sivan. What exactly was Mordechai waiting for? On the first day of Pesach, Haman was hanging like a piece of salami. So the next day, Mordechai needs to immediately write, okay, now let's not get killed, let's kill the enemy. What's he waiting? The whole Nisan, the whole Iyar, practically the whole Sivan, and then he sends out the decree. He waited 70 days. You ever wonder, what was he doing for 70 days? He said, when I get around to it, I'll write that we shouldn't get killed. I don't have time right now. Busy, I have a lot of things to do. It's not an emergency. It's only the whole Jewish people. We'll do it in 70 days. The next morning, at the Levaya of Haman, he should have had the letter ready to go out, that now, instead of us getting killed, we're going to kill the enemy. That's the kasha of Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz. What in the world was the man waiting for? Good question, right? Raise your hand if you think it's a good question. Raise your hand if you think it's the best question you ever heard on the Megillah. It's unanimous. Everybody thinks it's the best, right? What exactly was the yichus of the 23rd day of Sivan? Comes Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, and we're going to address something that we learned last week that was almost inexplicable. Do you remember last week we saw the Rashbam in Baba Basra on Daf Pei said that pigeons give birth every month. There's only, to a male and a female, there's only 1 month a year they can't give birth. Adar. Can you imagine? They're fertile like anything. They pump out Zachar Nekeva every month like clockwork. Comes the month of Adar, they become infertile. What happened to them? Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, what an unbelievable approach. He says, Yesh l'tmaya al Mordechai sheshaha b'hatzalas yisrael yos midai. Why did he delay 70 days? Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, it's very simple. The Yerushalmi says the year the Purim story happened, it was a Iber. The Gemara says, and many places in Shas, you're now to be Ma'aber the year before Rosh Hashanah. You can't make a second Adar before Rosh Hashanah. Now the decree went out in Nisan. And Haman decreed that the Jews should be killed in Adar. And the question though is, apparently, ultimately, it was an Iber. How is it an Iber? Who proclaimed it an Iber? Are you allowed to proclaim it an Iber in Chutz La'aretz? Is a Bezdin in Chutz La'aretz allowed to make an extra month in the year? Anybody know the answer to that question? Can a court in America make an extra Adar? Could a court in Bavel make it? The answer is yeah, as long as there's no Bezdin Haggadah in Yerushalayim. But what if there is a Bezdin Haggadah in Yerushalayim? Then they can't do it. In the times of Purim, was there a Bezdin Haggadah in Yerushalayim? You better believe there was. Absolutely, there was a Bezdin Haggadah in Yerushalayim. Who was manning that Bezdin? Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi. They had big guns. Can Mordechai make it an Iber, even though there's a high court in Yerushalayim? The Gemara says in Sanhedrin, only b'shas hatchak, only if they give permission. As soon as Haman made the decree to destroy us in Adar, Mordechai got very, very nervous. There are 2 months in the year that have very bad mazel. What months? Av. Av has bad mazel. The mazel of Av is Aryeh, lion, because lions are not cuddly. They eat their prey. And fish are dangerous. Big fish eat little fish. The 2 worst mazels of the year are Av and Adar. Actually, Adar was worse than Av. The original permutation of Hashem's name for Adar is Yud Kei Vav Kei, Soifei Teves backward. Adar was originally the worst month of the year. The mazel is bad. The mazel of Adar is bad. It's dogim. Dogim are dangerous. Levyasan, you don't want to get near the Levyasan. Levyasan could swallow the whole bingo with the parking lot and the trucks and all the other stores in the neighborhood for dessert.
Why is Cheshvan called Mar Cheshvan?
Mar? That's a very good question, but it's beyond the scope of this year. Mar Cheshvan is still a good month, but it's not like Adar, Av and Adar. So Mordechai had a plan. When Mordechai heard that Haman was planning on Adar, he said, emergency, emergency, emergency! Let's make an Ibriyar! So the Jews said, you can't make an Ibriyar before Rosh Hashanah, it's Nisan now. He said, I could do b'shas hadchak. Yeah, but you need permission. Who does he need permission? Bezdin Hagadol. So Mordechai has to send a letter to the Bezdin Hagadol in Yerushalmi requesting to allow him, in order to eradicate Haman's decree, to make an extra Adar. Does anybody know how long it takes for a message to get back and forth from Persia to Yerushalmi and back? 70 days. Therefore, the Megillah says, not until day 70, when Mordechai got the official authorization from Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi to make it a double Adar, did the Gezerah rescind, because until then, even though Haman's dead, so would we have been. Why? Because he made the decree in Adar, the only way around it was to get the authorization to make a second Adar. This explains the impossible pasuk in the Megillah of why it took Mordechai 70 days until he wrote to rescind the decree. So it comes out, according to Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, what does the Yerushalmi mean? What does Yerushalmi mean? That the year the Purim story happened, there were two Adars? The answer is, originally it was only one Adar. But the way we got out of it is that Mordechai added an extra Adar in order to circumvent the decree of Haman.
Does that mean Mordechai knew for sure that they're going to do it?
By the way, he didn't know. He didn't know, and it wasn't going to be that. So according to this approach of Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, this would explain, with the significance of Purim Katan. Because even though ultimately it was going to be in a second Adar, but originally it was going to be in one Adar. So you say, in which Adar were we saved? I don't know, maybe we were saved in the first Adar. We were saved because an extra Adar was added. But in which Adar were we saved? In which Adar was the decree originally? Adar Aleph. Ultimately, which one would it have been? Adar Beis. So what do you do in a following year when there are two Adars? It's Machlokes, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Should you celebrate Adar Aleph? A little bit, you should. Even though the Talmidei Baal Shem, they don't do anything in Adar Aleph, but maybe you should. That's the approach of Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz. That's the go'inus of Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz. Now, could we answer some of Mahari Bruna's kashas that Haman, right? The Mahari Bruna asked, so then, wait a second, Haman only made 12 lots. Sure he did. He only made 12 lots. Because there was only going to be 12 months. He got the Ezras Torah Luach. But the original Ezras Torah Luach did not have an extra month. They had to send out a second edition after Rosh Hashanah. They made another mailing and another fundraiser that year. Believe me, they took advantage of the second calendar that year. And regarding the Mahari Bruna's second question, why would anybody celebrate Adar Aleph? Because technically the Gzera of Haman was for Adar Aleph. And this perhaps would explain the significance of Purim Katan. That's the second approach in the Yerushalmi. The year the Purim story, there was a second Adar. It wasn't supposed to be a second Adar, but Mordechai arranged that there should be a second Adar. Third approach to the Yerushalmi. The third approach to the Yerushalmi is from Drashos Va'agados Chassam Sofer and the Shiurim as well. Take a look at number 18. The Shiurim says that even though the Yerushalmi says in the year of the Purim story there were two Adars, one way to learn it is like we learned it originally. The miracle happened in Adar Beis. Again, to which you could ask, as we did, why would anybody celebrate Adar Aleph? Or you could say as follows.
So, Rabbi, if I just interject, I
No.
maybe in the book.
No interjecting.
So I talk about the last the Purim that the Haman drew. Why would go to Yontif after such a bad thing?
Good question. I forgot to mention the book, The Concealed and the Revealed, is now available in pocket size. So,
That's true. It's in here.
so you could look in.
It's in the book.
You could look in the Concealed and the Revealed, and on chapter Reb Meir in the Sol Megillas Esther, page 162, you'll find an answer to that question. Now, the answer also appears in 162 in the large edition, same page number. In the Hebrew Sefer, the name of the chapter is Reb Meir Megillas Esther, Nafshay Kshura B'Nafshay. We bring there from Rabbi Ovadia Yosef and the Bnei Yissaschar in the name of the Balatanya. Very good question. Approach number 3. Says the Shalom Eshiv, the Yerushalmi says the year of the Purim story, there were two Adars. But the Yerushalmi doesn't say the Purim story happened in Adar Beis. Says the Shalom Eshiv, Haman decreed to make Purim, to destroy the Jews, in Adar Aleph. So you say if it happened in Adar Aleph, then why do we celebrate Adar Beis? Yeah. Now, if it happened in Adar Aleph, we would understand Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Yossi, why in all future years we celebrate Adar Aleph. But how do we explain Rosh Gamliel that in future years we celebrate Adar Beis? He says the same trick we pulled earlier. Because in Adar, the first year, nobody celebrated Purim. Only in Shushan. Everywhere else, they didn't celebrate Purim. They didn't yet celebrate Purim until year 2. And in year 2, there's only one Adar. So now the question is, how do we proceed from there? Especially Chassam Sofer writes in Jerusalem Ba'agados Chassam Sofer writes, why were we saved in Adar Aleph? We were saved in Adar Aleph because Moshe Rabbeinu was born in Adar Beis. And therefore, since Moshe was born during that general period, we were saved. But we were bailed out through Adar Beis. So maybe that would be a reason to celebrate Adar Beis. Be it as it may, that's another way to learn the Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi just means in the year of the Purim story it was a Me'uberes, but not that the not that the Gezerah was an Adar Beis, the Gezerah was an Adar Aleph. And finally, we have the approach of Shalos Teshuvas Chassam Sofer. Chassam Sofer in the Teshuvas Siman Kuf Samach Gimel. Chassam Sofer says that certainly the year of the miracle, it was supposed to be in Ibriyar. The Yerushalmi doesn't say, all the Yerushalmi says, Oisa Hashana Hoisa Me'uberes. It was primed to be in Ibriyar. Haman wanted that it should be in an Ibriyar, listen carefully, why? And schedule it for Adar Aleph. Because since Moshe Rabbeinu was born in Adar Beis, he didn't want to do it in Adar Beis because of the birth of Moshe. So he purposely wanted it to be in an Ibriyar, and then try to kill us in Adar Aleph. So what did the Chachamim do? They said, "Oh, we're going to trick you. We're going to get the full protection of Moshe. How? We're going to make it not an Ibriyar." When the Yerushalmi says it was a year that there were two Adars, it means it was supposed to be 2 Adars. And the reason it was supposed to do the 2 Adars is Haman was trying to avoid killing us in the month that Moshe was born, so that we shouldn't be protected by the birth of Moshe. So he scheduled to Adar Aleph. And the way we got around it was by eliminating Adar Beis. So in fact,
Mordechai's question was the reverse.
What?
So Mordechai's Shiloh was the reverse.
He doesn't get into who was responsible. He doesn't discuss the question of what was Mordechai waiting for? Why did it take 7 days? But he brings that, he quotes Yerushalmi, that in the year of the Purim story, it was 2 Adars. And he asks, so in that case, the miracle happened in Adar Aleph. So if the miracle happened in Adar Aleph, then we should always celebrate Adar Aleph. He says, oh, no, Samech Gula Legeula. So I have a question, he says. Let's say it would have happened in Kislev. You would also push it off to the Adar Beis to be Samech Gula Legeula. If it happened in a year that there were 2 Adars in Adar Aleph, then what would the pshat be in Reb Shimon Gamliel? To which he says, it was supposed to happen in a year that there was Adar Aleph. It was supposed to happen in a year that there were 2 Adars in Adar Aleph, but they changed the calendar and they made it only 1 Adar. So ultimately it happened in a regular Shana Pshuta. So it comes out, this is a 4th way of understanding Yerushalmi. When the Yerushalmi says it was Me'uberes, it doesn't mean it was Me'uberes, it was supposed to be Me'uberes, and it was supposed to be in Adar Aleph, which, by the way, that would explain Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yossi. Why would we celebrate Adar Aleph? We don't really need much explanation, because it happened in a regular year, so Ein Ma'avir and Ala Mitzvos. And this would explain the significance of Purim Katan. And by the way, this would not answer why Haman made only 12 lots and not 13 lots. But
The Avis, in other words, you just didn't accept the Avis for the seeing of whatever Bima'aber the Shana.
for Bima'aber the Shana, it's not dependent on Eidos, it's dependent on scheduling Nisan for the spring, right? So Ma'aber the Chadashim, it's going to be dependent on Eidos. Ma'aber the Shanim, it's going to be dependent on basically the climate during Nisan. But to save the Jewish people, they have some leeway, you know. They were given some discussion. So let's try to say clearly the 4 approaches in the Yerushalmi. The words of the Yerushalmi are that Oisa Hashana Hoisa Me'uberes. That year was an Ibriyar. So we have the approach of the Karban Ha'eda, the Pnei Moshe, the Shar Yisachar, that it was a year that there were 2 Adars. It happened in the 2nd Adar. Why would you celebrate the 1st Adar? Because anyway, in year 1, only in Shushan they celebrated it. But we asked on the Bnei Yisachar, what does he mean? I heard the Gezerah happened in Adar Sheni. What do you mean you heard it? It's Yerushalmi. The answer should be simple. It's not so simple what the Yerushalmi means. Yeah, the Yerushalmi says it was an Ibriyar, but maybe it means it should have been an Ibriyar. Or even though it was an Ibriyar, it happened in Adar Aleph. So the Bnei Yisachar is saying, I know the Yerushalmi. You're not going to pass the Yerushalmi over. You're not going to slip a Yerushalmi by me. When I say I heard, I mean I heard pshat in the Yerushalmi is it happened in an Ibriyar and it happened in Adar Beis. That's one approach. We asked on that approach. So what? Haman? Why did he only make 12 lots? Okay. Then we have the second approach. Second approach is Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, that it was supposed to be 1 Adar, and Haman wanted to be an Adar because in Adar we have bad mazel, and the proof is. By the way, you know why pigeons don't give birth in Adar? Because Klal Yisrael is compared to pigeons. And just like they have bad mazel, we had bad mazel in that month until it was switched. And Mordechai came along and he said, no. We're going to make a 2nd Adar. And he pushed off Haman's Gzera to Adar Beis. Adar Beis, we don't have bad mazel. According to that, we understand why Haman didn't make 13 lots, because it was only supposed to be 1 Adar. According to this, we understand why perhaps you would celebrate 1 Adar. Another approach is, it was a year that there were 2 Adars, and the miracle happened in Adar Aleph, and perhaps we celebrate Adar Beis, because again, the first year, only in Shushan they celebrated. And finally, the 4th approach was the exact opposite. It was Mu'uberes. It was supposed to be Mu'uberes. And it was scheduled for Adar Aleph. Haman wanted Dafka to be Adar Aleph. And Mordechai eliminated Adar Beis so that we have the full protection of the birth of Moshe Rabbeinu. And now we have a very reasonable... We don't understand why Haman didn't know about this. I guess Haman's calendar was... Right, this would not explain why Haman made 12 lots instead of 30. He should have made 13. What?
He was cheating because he didn't want the other base. He wanted
It sounded like he wanted it to be... I mean, he knew there were 13 months, but that wasn't going to be a possibility. He took that out of the pot. It was a rigged election.
If it's an Ibra year and there are two others,
Yeah.
pigeons don't give birth on both others?
There's only one way to find out. We go out to the Brooklyn Navy Yard and we check out the nests and we see if the pigeons give birth. I'm going to have to discuss with my people, but that's what the Rashbam says in the beginning of Hamoichas Asfina Bava Basra, that pigeons don't have good mazel and adar. But the good news is that's for the pigeons. It used to be for us. Now, Baruch Hashem, the Shar Yisoscha writes that originally the Mazel of Adar was Yud Kei Vav Kei backwards Sefer Tevis, and it got switched. So you can look in your Siddur, and the permutation of Yud Kei Vav Kei of Adar is no longer Ki B'chol Zeh Einenu Shayveli. It's now a different permutation. So these are 4 approaches in the Yerushalmi that says Oisa Shana Mu'uberes Haisa. So I'm very glad I was able to come back and share this. And Bez Hashem next week, regular time, 8:30 Wednesday night. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Bracha v'atzlacha. Kol tov. Baruch Tia.
Who was the one that convinced Ashreru to knock off the decree?
To knock off the decree?
Yeah, to take the decree away.
Mordechai and Esther?
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.